The reasons that Linux is superior to Windows. That number is legion. Today I'm going to give you my top 5 reasons why Linux is superior to Windows. Reason number 1, Linux is free. Now, when we talk about Linux being free, we're not talking about being free in terms of cost, although most of the time that is the case. Generally, Linux distributions are entirely free of cost. They are also free in terms of freedom, and that's usually what we mean when we talk about being free and open source software. We're talking about free in terms of free as in freedom, not free as in cost. But there is a certain financial aspect to it. Microsoft Windows costs money. A license for Microsoft Windows 10, I think your standard home license is $199 US. Pretty much 99% of Linux distributions out there are entirely free of cost. You can download them free, run them free of cost. Some of them do charge for commercial support, for those that have corporate backing. Those distros like Ubuntu, Red Hat, SUSE, because they're backed by large corporations, Canonical, Red Hat, and SUSE. But for the most part, your Linux distros are entirely free of cost. You can get free support from the community, from IRC chat channels, from forums. So I need to do a better job, though, and I think a lot of us need to do a better job when we talk about Linux being free. Of course, this is Microsoft Windows 10 here. This is not free. This is very much non-free. It's non-free in terms of you had to pay money to get Windows 10. It's also non-free as in that it restricts your freedoms. In contrast, something like Ubuntu Mate here, this is Ubuntu Mate 17.10, is very much free. It was entirely free of cost, but also it is entirely free in terms of its open source nature and free as in freedom. And what a lot of the free software people like Richard Stallman do is they tend to quit using the term free because it has so many meanings in the English language. They use terms like gratis, meaning free in cost, and libre in terms of free as in freedom. And I need to start incorporating those terms when I talk about things being free as well, because it is confusing. When I say free, am I talking about cost? Am I talking about free as in freedom? So I'm going to try to start using the words gratis and libre more when I describe things being free. But back to Linux being free and Windows not being free. When I go to the Ubuntu Mate help guide, which is included here in the Ubuntu Mate distro, they have a little help guide. They mention open source software. What is open source software? What Linux, Ubuntu, and the Mate desktop all have in common is they are open source. Open source software is software that can be freely used, changed, shared by anyone. In a nutshell, Ubuntu Mate is free, in the truest sense of that word, free. So basically, we are free to do whatever we want to with this software. It is ours. We have the code. If I want to change it, I can. If I want to hack on it, I can. If I want to take this code, fork it, create my own thing out of it, just rename it, and I am free to do that. It is completely free as in freedom. And here I'll say it's libre. In contrast, Windows 10, very, very much not free. Windows 10, let's look at the Windows 10 End User License Agreement. This is the EULA. I won't read this whole thing, but basically this entire document is nothing but telling you how Microsoft restricts your freedoms. They restrict you from distributing a copy of this. They restrict you from disassembling the code, from modifying the code, hacking on the code. You can't use or virtualize features of this software separately. You can't publish, copy, rent, lease, or lend the software. You can't transfer the software. You can't use the software as server software for commercial hosting, making the software available for simultaneous use by multiple users. You can't reverse engineer, decompile, disassemble. You can't do anything, basically, with Microsoft Windows. I also most of this document also includes some other nasty stuff I'll get into in a second. Reason number 2, though, I'll get into for why Linux is superior to Windows is security. Linux is secure. Microsoft Windows is not. Despite what a lot of Microsoft Windows fanboys will sometimes tell you that Windows can be made to be just as secure as Linux, it is an inherently insecure operating system. It just is. Where Linux is inherently a secure operating system. That's just the facts. Can I lock down Windows in such a way that it will be as secure as a Linux install? Sure you can. I know the Linux fanboys will sometimes tell you as long as you're running your antivirus program and you have your firewall set up and all this and that, you stay off of shady internet websites or maybe just disconnect from the internet altogether, you're secure. Well, of course you're secure. Yes, you can do all that. But you know what? I don't have to do anything like that running Linux. Ubuntu Mate, if I was running this on my main machine, I wouldn't need an antivirus program running on it. There's no Linux viruses. I mean, they're practically non-existent. So I save money there because, those Linux, those antivirus programs you're running in Windows are subscription based for the most part. You're paying yearly fees to have that thing running. I don't have to do that in Ubuntu Mate or any other Linux distro I happen to be running. Do I want to set up a firewall? If I want to set up a firewall, I can do that in Linux just as I can in Windows. There's no reason why I couldn't, though, run antivirus software in Linux or, enable a firewall. I can do all that in Linux just as you guys can in Windows. But even if I don't do that, my Linux install is pretty secure. If you're not running antivirus in Windows, you're asking for trouble. It's just the nature of these operating systems. Linux is secure. Windows is not. Linux can run on old hardware. That's reason number 3. Linux is superior to Windows. If you have a machine that is older than, 4 or 5 years old, and it wasn't a high-end machine when you bought it 4 or 5 years ago, your machine is going to struggle to run Windows 10. It is going to run slow. Windows are going to open up really slowly. Here I'm running a VM today. I only gave this VM 1 core of my CPU and 2 gigs of RAM. Did you see how long it took for that file manager to open? Let me close it. Let me open that thing again. See, that takes a little bit of time. The menu system, it's a little laggy. Not too bad. If I opened Internet Explorer, I already have 1 instance of it open, though. Can I open a second one? This thing takes a long time to open. All right. Anyway, and this is a VM, but, older hardware. Some of it is going to be a 1-core CPU. Some of it is going to have 2 gigs of RAM, but a lot of old hardware, especially 1-core CPU kind of machines, are going to have much less than 2 gigs of RAM. Windows 10 is not going to run on those machines at all. You're not going to be able to, you may not even be able to get it installed. There are versions of Linux that I have no problems getting on machines that are 5 years old, 10 years old, 15 years old in some cases. I can install certain lightweight Linux distributions that use, say, the LXDE desktop environment, or lightweight minimal window managers like OpenBox, Fluxbox, that sort of thing. I can get them installed on machines sometimes that are 15 years old, or even older, possibly, potentially. You can't do that with Windows. You cannot restore those old machines that you've got stashed away in a closet somewhere with Microsoft Windows. You're not going to ever be able to do anything with those machines in the Windows world. But in Linux, even something like Ubuntu Mate, I'm not sure what kind of system resources Mate is taking. I don't use Mate that much, but I gave this machine 1 core CPU, 2 gigs of RAM, just like I gave the Windows 10 VM. And CPU usage, let it settle down for a second. 5%, 8%, 19%, 7%. It's kind of fluctuating. but it's not too bad. RAM usage, though, look at that. 583 megs of RAM. That's not too bad. And this is not a lightweight desktop environment. The Mate desktop environment is kind of middle of the road. We can get much, much lighter desktop environments on Linux that take 200 megs of RAM or less in some cases, especially if we're going window manager only. Reason number 4 that Linux is superior to Windows has to be Linux has the command line. Now, I know Windows users are going to tell me that, you know what, Windows has a command line too. You can drop down into a command prompt in Windows. Yes, you can, but it's not as powerful as the Linux command line. Basically, the command prompt in Windows kind of sucks. You can't do much in it. Let me pull up the Ubuntu Mate VM I had running. I'm going to Control-Alt-T to bring up a terminal. In this terminal, I could do anything. I could actually get all my work done inside a terminal if I really wanted to. I mean, I could navigate the directory structure. I could, CD around into different things and, this files. And if I wanted to, I could create a text document with something like Vim or Nano. So Nano. Oh no, I'm going to create a new document here. How about test.txt? And I can start writing something. This is a test. Control X, save. Yep. Y to save. I have that document there. I can list it. Yeah, it's listed in that directory. If I wanted to, I could do an update of the machine while I'm here. I have no idea how long it's been since I've updated this machine. Yeah, it's probably going to be a massive update. But anyway. You get the point. I can do whatever I want from inside the command line, and a lot of what I just did was easier to do in the command line than trying to do all of that in the GUI. I mean, how fast did I, CD around the, change directories? It's a lot quicker to do that if you know where you're going in the directory structure than opening the file manager and navigating around. Creating that plain text file, that was pretty dang fast. Updating your system. How fast was that? Just to type sudo apt update, sudo apt upgrade. And then I could hit yes here, but you know what? It's a pretty big update. I'm going to decline taking that. I don't plan on keeping this VM. But anyway, the command line. Linux has it. Windows 10 doesn't really have much of a command prompt. They do have one. You can find it by typing CMD. I can't find it because I installed Windows 10S, and apparently Windows 10S, I guess they want to prevent me from doing damage to the system. So they won't allow me to actually have a command prompt. So I don't have one. Why? I don't know. Surely I could give it a system administrator password and it would allow me to have a command prompt. But no. Microsoft restricts me from even having a command prompt. So that's unfortunate for that. Reason 5, Linux is superior to Microsoft Windows, though, has to be Linux gives us choice. We have choice when we run Linux. Microsoft gives us no choice. You see this desktop environment here? The Windows desktop environment, the panel, the file manager, even the browser. In some cases, I'm running Windows 10S. I can run Microsoft's Edge browser, but I don't think I can go out and get Firefox or Google Chrome or anything. It really restricts what software, at least on this version of Windows. But even if I was running some of the more customizable versions of Windows, you're really not changing things like the desktop environment, display manager, display server, and net system, all that thing. I mean, you can build Linux from the ground up. Ubuntu Mate here. If I didn't want to run the Ubuntu Mate desktop environment, I could pull up a terminal and I can install one of a dozen different desktop environments on this and reboot the machine and be in those. Or if I wanted to go really lightweight, like minimal window managers for a desktop, there's 100 of them I could install within seconds, reboot the machine, or just simply log out, go to my login manager, change sessions, be right back in something different. So, and the same thing with pretty much every aspect. I don't like the file manager, install a new one. I don't like the browser, install a new one. we have so much choice, infinite choice almost in Linux. And to some, that can be confusing. To the new Linux user, they're not used to having so much choice. Choice of distros even, the 300 and something distros that are listed on DistroWatch. To new Linux users, that's confusing. What should I choose? Because they're used to basically being presented with one thing. That's all you can have. Windows 10, you can't do anything with. That thing is locked down tighter than a bull's ass during fly season. So Windows, you have no choice. Linux gives you ultimate choice. So those are my top 5 reasons Linux is superior to Windows. To end the video, I do want to do a special thanks to all my patrons, all my Patreon supporters: Ron, Brian, Carl, Greg, Carlos, Rob, Mark, Christian, Benjamin, Stephen, Marcus, Kevin, Bob, and Darkwin. You guys are awesome. You guys help make this show possible. Peace, guys.